She had exactly 3 seconds to decide, 3 seconds to choose between her own life and the man lying unconscious at her feet, the Dragon Lord, the most powerful being in the realm, a man who could incinerate entire armies with a single breath. He was dying. His skin had turned a ghostly grey, his breathing shallow, irregular, fading with each agonizing moment. And Emily Carter, a housekeeper, a single mother, an unknown, held his fate in her trembling hands. The royal physician had spoken the words that changed everything. Only a kiss from a human with pure blood could transfer the poison. Only a human could save him. But the transfer wouldn't be simple. The person who kissed him would absorb part of the curse. They might live, they might die. There was no way to know. Emily looked at Damien Blackwood, the Dragon Lord, and felt her heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. She had loved him in secret for 3 months, 3 months of watching him from the shadows, 3 months of noticing how he always made sure the staff ate before himself, 3 months of seeing him spend extra time with her daughter Lily, teaching her how to count using dragon scales, making her laugh when Emily thought she would never hear that sound again. He never knew. He could never know. A housekeeper didn't fall in love with a king. A human didn't fall in love with a dragon. It was forbidden. It was impossible. It was the truth she carried in her chest, like a burning secret. And now, he was dying. The aristocracy around her was silent. The guards had stepped back. Everyone was watching. Everyone was waiting. No one was willing to step forward. No one was willing to risk their life for the Dragon Lord, because they didn't love him. They feared him. They served him out of obligation. But love? That was something they kept for themselves. Emily felt her hands trembling. She thought of Lily, her beautiful 5-year-old daughter, with curly hair and eyes too big for her face. The daughter she had brought to this castle to protect, the daughter she was raising alone because her father had been a monster who used his fists instead of his words. If Emily died here, Lily would be alone, truly alone. No mother, no father, no family. Just a small girl in a world that devoured small girls. But if Emily did nothing, Damien would die, and something in her would die with him. Some part of her that still believed in goodness, some part of her that had started to heal in the shadow of his kindness. 3 seconds stretched into an eternity. Emily stepped forward. The crowd gasped. Someone shouted for her to stop. She heard a woman scream that it wasn't her place, that she was just a housekeeper, that she had no right to touch the Dragon Lord. She did not care. She knelt beside him. His face was so close to hers now. She could see the scar on his chest, where someone had tried to kill him years ago. She could see the faint traces of silver scales along his neck, the dragon heritage that marked him as different, as powerful, as alone. She touched his cheek. His skin was cold, so cold. Dragons were supposed to burn within a fire, but his fire was dying. Emily leaned down, and she kissed him. The world exploded in golden light. Pain, unlike anything she had ever known, shot through her body. It was like swallowing fire, like having her blood replaced with molten iron. She screamed, but no sound came out. Her vision went white. Her heart stopped, started again, stopped. And then, darkness. Complete darkness. The last thing she heard before she fell was her daughter crying, Lily screaming for her mother, Lily begging her to wake up. And then, nothing. Nothing at all. Part 1. The Invisible Woman 3 months earlier. Emily Carter stood at the gates of Shadowbrook Keep and wondered if she had made the worst mistake of her life. The keep was enormous. Towers of black stone reaching toward a grey sky. Windows that glowed with firelight even in the middle of the day. Walls so thick that no army had ever breached them. And above everything, the banner of the dragon. A silver beast on a field of midnight blue. This was the home of Damian Blackwood, the Dragon Lord, the last of his kind, the most feared ruler in 5 kingdoms, the man Emily was about to work for. She held Lily closer to her chest. Her daughter was sleeping, exhausted from 3 days of travel, 3 days of walking, hiding, running, 3 days of looking over their shoulder, terrified that he would find them. Ricardo, her husband, the man who had promised to love and protect her, the man who had turned those promises into lies, written on her skin in bruises and blood. He would not find her here. No one came to Shadowbrook Keep without permission. No one left without permission. It was a fortress, a sanctuary, a prison for some, perhaps. But for Emily, it was freedom. The guard at the gate looked at her with suspicious eyes. "You are the new housekeeper," he said, and it was not a question. "Yes," Emily answered. "Emily Carter. I was hired by the head housekeeper." The guard looked at Lily and the child. "My daughter. I was told she could stay with me." The guard was silent for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. "The housekeeper will meet you in the servants' quarters. Go straight. Do not wander. The Dragon Lord does not tolerate trespassers." Emily nodded and walked through the gates. She did not look back. There was nothing to look back at. Only a past filled with pain. Only a man who had stolen 5 years of her life and left her with nothing but scars, and a daughter who flinched at loud noises. That life was over now. This was the beginning of something new. The servants' quarters were smaller than she had expected. A single room with 2 beds, a small dresser, and a window that looked out onto the kitchen gardens. But it was clean, it was safe, and it was theirs. Emily laid Lily on one of the beds and covered her with the thin blanket she had carried from home. Her daughter stirred, but did not wake. Good. She needed rest. They both did. A knock at the door made Emily jump. She opened it to find a woman in her 50s, with grey hair pulled back in a severe bun, and eyes that missed nothing. This was Margaret, the head housekeeper, the woman who had hired Emily based on a single letter and a desperate plea. "You made it," Margaret said. There was no warmth in her voice, but no cruelty either, just efficiency. "I will give you 1 day to settle in, tomorrow. You begin work at dawn. You will clean the East Wing. You will not speak to the aristocracy unless spoken to. You will not enter the Dragon Lord's chambers under any circumstances. Understood?" "Understood," Emily said. Margaret looked past her to where Lily slept. "The child can stay in the kitchens during the day. The cook will watch her, but she must be quiet. The Dragon Lord has sharp ears and little patience for noise." "She'll be quiet," Emily promised. "She's a good girl." Margaret studied her. A flicker of something softer crossed her face, almost imperceptible. "I wasn't always a housekeeper," she said quietly. "I was a wife once, to a man who believed his hands were for punishment, not for love." She paused, her gaze hardening. "I know why you're here. and I know what you're running from. You're safe within Shadowbrook Keep as long as you follow the rules. Understand?" Emily felt tears welling. "Yes, thank you." Margaret gave a curt nod, turned, and walked away. Her footsteps echoed, resonating through the stone hallway, then faded into silence. Emily closed the door and leaned against it, her legs trembling, her heart hammering. But for the first time in 5 years, she felt something she had almost forgotten existed: hope. That night, she dreamed of dragons soaring through starlit skies. The first week was brutal. Emily was up before the crack of dawn each day, cleaning floors that stretched on forever. It felt like miles. She polished silverware until her fingers screamed. She washed linens, beat rugs, scrubbed windows until they shone like crystal. By nightfall, she could barely keep her eyes open, but she didn't complain. She couldn't complain. This job was everything. This job meant food on the table for Lily, a roof over their heads, safety from Jake. She quickly learned the castle's hidden patterns, which members of the aristocracy were kind, and which were downright cruel, which guards could be trusted, and which took pleasure in abusing their power over the staff, which corridors were safe to walk alone, and which were best avoided after the sun went down. And she learned about the Dragon Lord. Damien Blackwood was a riddle, shrouded in mystery and danger, a figure whispered about in hushed tones. He was tall, taller than any man Emily had ever encountered. His hair was as black as the darkest night, and his eyes were the color of storm clouds just before the lightning strikes. He moved through Shadowbrook Keep like a ghost, appearing, disappearing, without a trace. The servants whispered tales that he could transform into a dragon at will, that he had incinerated entire armies with a single breath of fire, that he was immortal, that he was cursed, that he was alone. Emily didn't know what to believe. What she did know was this: he was nothing like what she'd imagined. She saw him one morning, 2 weeks after arriving. She was cleaning the hallway just outside the grand ballroom when the massive doors swung open and he stepped out. She froze, plastering herself against the wall, trying to become invisible, to disappear into the stone. But he stopped. He looked at her. Those grey eyes, so intense, so piercing, bore into her. And for a fleeting moment, the world around her seemed to vanish. "You're new," he stated. His voice was deep, resonant, like thunder echoing across distant mountains. "Yes, Your Majesty," Emily managed to whisper, her voice barely audible. "I started 2 weeks ago." He nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "The East Wing," he continued. "You clean it?" "Yes, Your Majesty." Another nod. Then, almost imperceptibly, the corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but something akin to it. "You missed a spot. On the third window from the left," he said. "Second floor." And then he was gone, gliding down the hallway with a silent, almost predatory grace, leaving Emily with a pounding heart, burning cheeks, and the strangest sensation that she had been seen, truly seen. For the first time in years, she went back and cleaned the window. There was no spot. She checked 3 times just to be sure. Had he been teasing her? The Dragon Lord, the most feared ruler in 5 kingdoms, had cracked a joke. She didn't know what to think. but she thought about it for the rest of the day. Lily fell head over heels in love with Shadowbrook Keep. After the initial days of fear and confusion, her daughter began to bloom, to truly come alive. The kitchen was filled with amazing smells and kind-hearted souls who slipped her treats when Margaret wasn't looking. The gardens boasted flowers she had never seen before. And the stables, according to whispered legends, housed horses and a real dragon that the Dragon Lord sometimes rode into battle. Lily talked about the dragon constantly. "Mom, is it big?" she asked one night as Emily tucked her in. "Very big," Emily responded. "Bigger than this whole castle." Lily's eyes widened in amazement. "And is it scary?" Emily thought about Damien Blackwood, about his storm-grey eyes and silent movements, and the near smile he had given her. "I don't think so," she said softly. "I think it might be lonely." "Why is it lonely?" "Because it's the only one of its kind. There are no other dragons left." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she declared, "That's sad. Mom, everyone needs friends." "Yes," Emily agreed. "Everyone needs friends." She kissed her daughter goodnight and blew out the candle. In the darkness, she pondered what Lily had said. Everyone needs friends. Such a simple truth, so profoundly obvious. And yet, looking around Shadowbrook Keep, Emily realized that the Dragon Lord had none. He had subjects, servants, and advisors, but friends, people who loved him for who he was, rather than for what he could do. She couldn't think of a single one. The next morning, she saw him again. He was in the garden, standing near the fountain, staring at something far off in the distance. He looked tired, more tired than a man who could turn into a dragon had any right to look. There were dark circles under his eyes and a palpable tension in his shoulders, hinting at sleepless nights and burdens he carried alone. Emily knew she should turn around and walk away. It wasn't her place to approach the Dragon Lord. Margaret had made that abundantly clear, but Lily was with her, and Lily had no fear. Before Emily could stop her, her daughter broke free and raced towards the Dragon Lord. Her tiny feet pattered on the stone path. Her curly hair bounced with each step, and her voice, bright and clear, rang out across the garden. "Excuse me, Mr. Dragon Lord, are you sad?" Emily's heart stopped. She bolted after Lily, ready to apologize profusely, ready to beg forgiveness for her daughter's impudence, ready to accept whatever punishment awaited them. But Damien had turned to face Lily, and his expression was far from angry. He looked surprised. He knelt down, bringing himself to Lily's level. Up close, Emily could see the faint silver scales that speckled his neck and the backs of his hands. The dragon heritage that set him apart, made him other. "And why would you think I'm sad, little one?" he asked gently. Lily tilted her head. "Because your eyes look like Mom's eyes when she's remembering Jake." Emily felt her blood run cold. Damien's gaze lifted, his storm-grey eyes locking with hers, and she saw something in their depths that made her chest ache. Recognition, understanding, a shared knowledge of what it meant to carry the weight of the past. "Your mother remembers Jake?" he asked Lily, but his eyes never wavered from Emily. Lily nodded solemnly. "But we're safe now. Mom said Jake can't find us here." Damien was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and turned his full attention to Emily. "Your daughter is right," he said. His voice was soft, almost tender. "No one will find you here. I promise you that." Emily felt tears threatening to spill over. "Thank you, Your Majesty," Emily said, her voice barely a whisper. He gave a curt nod, a single, precise movement. Then he reached into the pocket of his impeccably tailored jacket and pulled out something small, something that caught the light. He held it out to Lily. "Do you know what this is?" he asked, his voice a low rumble, a question hanging in the air. Lily took the object carefully. Her small fingers closed around it. It was a scale. A silver dragon scale that seemed to hum with power. It caught the light and sparkled like a tiny piece of the moon, fallen to earth. "It is beautiful," Lily breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's a dragon scale," Damien said, his voice softening ever so slightly. "My dragon scale. I want you to keep it. It will protect you. If you're ever scared, hold it tight and remember that dragons guard what they treasure. And you, little one, are now under my protection." Lily looked up at him, her eyes shimmering with a mixture of awe and confusion. "Does that mean we're friends?" Something shifted in Damien's expression, a fleeting flicker, something soft, vulnerable, almost painful. "Yes," he said quietly, almost reluctantly. "I suppose it does." Emily watched as her daughter, without hesitation, threw her arms around the Dragon Lord's legs in a hug. She watched the most feared man in the 5 kingdoms stand frozen, immobile, as if he had forgotten what affection felt like. She watched him slowly, hesitantly, almost awkwardly, place one large hand on Lily's small head. And in that moment, Emily Carter fell in love. Not with the power, or the crown, or Shadowbrook Keep. Not with the wealth, or the security, or the promise of protection. With him. With the man who had shown such unexpected kindness to her daughter. With the dragon who had given a little girl a piece of himself. With the lonely king who needed friends, just like everyone else. It was impossible. It was forbidden. It was the worst thing she could have done, and it was already too late to stop it. The weeks that followed were the happiest Emily had known in years, a stark contrast to the life she had known before. She still worked from dawn until dusk. She still cleaned and polished and scrubbed, ensuring Shadowbrook Keep maintained its pristine state. But now, there were moments of light scattered through her days, glimmers of hope in the darkness. Moments when she would see Damien in the corridors and he would nod at her, a silent acknowledgement. Moments when Lily would run to him in the garden and show him drawings she had made, his stoic face softening as he listened intently. Moments when Emily would catch him watching her from across a crowded room. A stolen glance, and something electric would pass between them. A silent conversation. They never spoke beyond the necessary formalities. They never touched. They barely even looked at each other when others were around. But Emily knew. She knew from the way he always made sure there were extra blankets sent to the servants' quarters before cold nights, a subtle act of care. She knew from the way he had quietly promoted Margaret to a position that came with better pay and more respect, rewarding her loyalty and hard work. She knew from the way he had ordered that Lily be given proper lessons with the other children of the keep, despite her status, ensuring she had the same opportunities. He was not the monster the world believed him to be. He was a man, a lonely, burdened, beautiful man who had forgotten how to let people in. A man trapped by his responsibilities and haunted by his past. And Emily wanted to be let in, more than she had ever wanted anything. She longed to break through his defenses and offer him the comfort he so desperately needed. But she was just a housekeeper, and he was a king, a dragon lord, and some distances, some divides, could not be crossed. Or so she thought, because fate, as it often does, had other plans. And those plans began with a man named Marcus Sterling. Marcus was the king's senior counselor, his most trusted advisor. He had served the Blackwood family for 20 years, a testament to his loyalty and political acumen. He was handsome in a sharp, calculating way. His features were refined, almost severe. He smiled often, laughed easily, and spoke with the kind of charm that made people instinctively trust him. He was a master of manipulation. Emily did not trust him. There was something in his eyes, something cold and calculating, something that reminded her of Ricardo, a chilling echo from her past. The way he looked at people like they were pieces on a game board, disposable and easily moved. The way his smile never quite reached his eyes, a mask of sincerity. The way he seemed to always be watching, always be waiting, always be planning something. She tried to stay away from him, to avoid his gaze and presence. But in a castle or a keep, there were only so many places to hide, especially when you were a member of the staff. It was a Tuesday when he first spoke to her directly, a day that would forever be etched in her memory. She was cleaning the corridor outside the council chamber, polishing the already gleaming stone floor, when the doors opened and Marcus walked out. He stopped when he saw her. His eyes, those cold, assessing eyes, traveled over her body in a way that made her skin crawl. His gaze lingered too long, too intimately. "You're the new housekeeper," he said, his voice smooth as silk, but with a hint of steel beneath. "Emily, is it not?" "Yes, my lord," she answered. Her voice was barely audible. She kept her eyes down, subservient, invisible. The mask she had learned to wear with Ricardo, a shield against unwanted attention. "I've heard things about you." "Emily," Marcus said. His voice was smooth as silk, dangerous as a blade. "You're from the southern villages. You came here alone, with a child." He paused, letting the implications hang in the air. "Some might wonder what a woman like you is running from." "I'm running from nothing," Emily said. Her voice was stronger now, more defiant. "I came here for work, to provide for my daughter." "Of course you did." He stepped closer, too close, invading her personal space. Emily could smell his cologne, something expensive and suffocating, a scent that lingered long after he was gone. "The king seems to have taken an interest in you, Emily," Marcus continued, his voice dripping with insinuation. "Or at least in your daughter. He's been distracted lately, unfocused. Some might say, bewitched." Emily's heart pounded in her chest, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. I don't know what you mean, my lord. Do you not?" He reached out and touched her chin, forcing her to look up at him. His fingers were cold, like ice. "Let me be clear, Emily. The king is not your concern. He has duties, obligations, a kingdom to run. He doesn't have time for common housekeepers and their illegitimate children. Whatever fantasy you have constructed in your mind, I suggest you let it go before someone gets hurt." His words were a veiled threat, a warning of consequences. He released her chin and stepped back. His smile was back in place, perfectly charming, as if nothing at all, had happened. "It was lovely talking to you, Emily," he said. His voice oozed with false sincerity. "We should do this again sometime." And then he was gone, disappearing back into the depths of Shadowbrook Keep, leaving Emily alone and shaken. Emily stood in the corridor, shaking. Her hands were trembling uncontrollably. Her breath was coming in short, gasping breaths. The mask had cracked, revealing the fear she had tried so hard to bury. The fear she had thought she had left behind was rising up again, threatening to swallow her whole. She thought she was safe here. She had been wrong. That night, she held Lily extra tight, whispering reassurances into her daughter's hair, and did not sleep at all, haunted by Marcus Sterling's words and the chilling realization that her past had followed her. But if you found value in this story, consider showing your support with super thanks. Every contribution helps bring more stories like this to life. Every contribution says that these tales of love and sacrifice matter. Every contribution becomes part of something larger than any of us, a collective appreciation for storytelling. Because stories like Emily's, they need to be told. And people like you are the ones who make that possible. By supporting independent creators, you're ensuring that diverse voices and perspectives are heard. And now, let me take you back to where we left off. Back to the moment that changed everything. Back to the day the Dragon Lord collapsed. It was 3 days after Emily's encounter with Marcus. Something was wrong with the king. Emily noticed it first at breakfast. Damien was always the first one in the Great Hall, a creature of habit. He would sit at the head of the long table, reviewing documents while the servants brought food. But that morning, he was late, unusually so. And when he finally arrived, he looked pale, drawn, as if he hadn't slept in days. There were dark circles under his eyes that had not been there before, a visible sign of his deteriorating health. The aristocracy noticed too. They whispered among themselves, casting worried glances at their king, their anxiety palpable, but no one said anything. Because you did not question the Dragon Lord, not even when he looked like death was knocking at his door. The fear of his power, his reputation, was too great. Emily wanted to say something. She wanted to ask if he was all right, to offer her concern. But what could a housekeeper say to a king? The gulf between their stations seemed insurmountable. What right did she have to express concern? Really? So she watched, and she worried. And she prayed to whatever gods might be listening, that he would be okay. He was not okay. By midday, he was worse. His hands were shaking. His skin had taken on a grayish tinge. He stumbled once in the corridor outside his study and had to catch himself against the wall. Emily was there. She saw it happen. She saw the fear that flashed across his face, the realization that something was deeply, terribly wrong. Their eyes met. "Emily," he said. His voice was hoarse, strained. "You should not be here, Your Majesty." She started. "Go," he said. "Please, before." He did not finish the sentence, because in that moment, his eyes rolled back in his head, and he collapsed. Emily screamed. The next few hours were chaos, guards running, aristocracy shouting, royal physicians summoned from every corner of the kingdom. The Dragon Lord was carried to his chambers, where the finest physicians in the realm examined him and came to a terrifying conclusion. He had been poisoned, not just any poison, dragon venom. The only substance that could harm a dragon shifter from the inside. It was rare, almost impossible to obtain, and deadly beyond measure. The Dragon Lord had 48 hours to live, unless someone with pure human blood could transfer the curse through a kiss. A true kiss, lips to lips, heart to heart. The human would absorb part of the poison, neutralizing it enough for the Dragon Lord's dragon blood to fight off the rest. But there was a risk. The human might die. The transfer might be too much for their mortal body. They might absorb too much of the curse and perish in the Dragon Lord's place. It was a death sentence wrapped in a cure. The aristocracy gathered. The council debated. Volunteers were called for. No one stepped forward. Of course, they did not. Why would anyone risk their life for a Dragon Lord who inspired fear more than love? Why would anyone sacrifice themselves for a man who had kept everyone at arm's length for decades? Marcus Sterling stood at the head of the council, his face a mask of concern. Such a tragedy, he said, if only there was someone willing to make the sacrifice. But we cannot ask anyone to throw away their life. We must accept that the Dragon Lord's fate is sealed. Emily listened from the doorway, invisible as always. Lily was with her, clutching that dragon scale like it was the most precious thing in the world. "Mama," Lily whispered, "is the Dragon Lord going to die?" Emily did not know what to say. The truth was too terrible. The lie was too fragile. "I do not know, baby," she answered. "I do not know." But she did know. She knew that she could save him. She knew that she had pure human blood, untainted by any supernatural heritage. She knew that her kiss could transfer the poison. She knew that she might die in the process. And she knew, with a certainty that terrified her, that she was going to do it anyway because she loved him, because Lily loved him, because he was the first person in 5 years who had made her feel safe, because some things were worth dying for. Emily made her decision. She left Lily with Margaret, who looked at her with knowing eyes and did not ask questions. She walked through the corridors of Shadowbrook Keep, past the guards and the aristocracy and the whispered conversations. She walked until she reached the Dragon Lord's chambers. The doors were guarded by 2 men who looked at her like she was nothing, a housekeeper, a nobody, an invisible woman who had no business being here. "I need to see the Dragon Lord," Emily said. "No one sees the Dragon Lord," one of the guards replied. "I can save him." The guards exchanged a look. Then, slowly, they stepped aside. Emily pushed open the doors and walked into the chamber. Damien was lying on a massive bed, surrounded by physicians who looked helpless. His skin was gray now, almost translucent. His breathing was shallow, labored, fading. He was dying. Emily walked to the bedside. The physicians parted for her, too shocked to stop her. She looked down at the man she loved, the Dragon Lord she had watched from the shadows. The dragon who had given her daughter a scale and called her friend. She touched his cheek, cold, so cold. "I am going to save you," she whispered, "even if it kills me." And she leaned down. Her lips touched his. The world exploded in golden light, and now you know what happened next. Now you know why Emily is lying unconscious in a bed, her body marked by golden lines that pulse with fading light. Now you know why Lily is crying at her mother's side, clutching that dragon scale with both hands. Now you know why the entire kingdom is holding its breath, waiting to see if the housekeeper who kissed the Dragon Lord will live or die. But do not leave yet, because there is so much more to this story. What you do not know is that Marcus Sterling is watching from the shadows, watching with cold, calculating eyes, watching his plan begin to unravel. Because Marcus is the one who poisoned the Dragon Lord. Marcus is the one who has been slowly feeding dragon venom to Damien for months. Marcus is the one who wanted the throne for himself. Marcus is the one who never expected anyone to be foolish enough, loving enough, brave enough to try to save the Dragon Lord's life. Emily has ruined everything, and Marcus is not going to let her get away with it. The story is just beginning. Stay with me, because what comes next will change everything. Part 2. The accusation. 2 days before the kiss. Emily made a discovery that would cost her everything. It was late at night. Lily was sleeping in their small room. Emily had been sent to clean the council chamber after an emergency meeting that had run past midnight. The aristocracy had left in a hurry. Papers scattered across the long table. Candles still burning. Emily was gathering the papers to straighten them when she noticed something unusual. A small glass bottle had rolled under the table. It was dark purple, almost black, with a cork stopper and a strange shimmer to the liquid inside. Emily picked it up the moment her fingers touched the glass. She felt a wave of wrongness wash over her. Something dark, something deadly, something that did not belong in a king's castle. She held the bottle up to the candlelight. The liquid inside seemed to move on its own, swirling and coiling like a living thing. "What is that you have there?" Emily spun around. Marcus Sterling stood in the doorway, his face half hidden in shadow. His smile was there, as always, but his eyes were not smiling. His eyes were calculating, measuring, deciding something. "I found it on the floor," Emily said. She held out the bottle. "It must have been left behind after the meeting." Marcus did not move. "How fortunate that you found it. That is a very valuable substance, very rare." "What is it?" "Nothing you need to concern yourself with, not even a little bit." He walked toward her slowly, each step deliberate, each step bringing him closer. Emily felt her heart begin to race. The fear she knew so well was rising in her chest, a cold, icy wave. "Give me the bottle," Marcus said, his voice like chipped ice. Emily handed it to him. Their fingers touched briefly. His skin was cold, reptile cold, like touching a snake in winter. "Thank you," he said. "Now forget you ever saw this. Do you understand?" "Yes, my lord." He studied her for a long moment, his gaze unwavering. Then he turned and walked away, the bottle disappearing into his coat pocket with a sinister rustle. Emily stood alone in the council chamber, shaking, every nerve in her body on high alert. She did not know what was in that bottle, some kind of potion maybe. But she knew, with absolute certainty, that it was connected to something terrible, something evil. And she knew that Marcus Sterling was at the center of it. The next day, the accusations began, like a storm brewing on the horizon. Emily was cleaning the great hall when the doors burst open and guards flooded in. Like a tidal wave of metal and muscle, they were followed by Marcus, his face a mask of righteous fury. And behind him came several members of the aristocracy, their expressions ranging from shock to satisfaction, a mixture of morbid curiosity and thinly veiled glee. "Seize her," Marcus commanded, his voice echoing through the hall like thunder. Emily dropped her cleaning cloth. What? What is happening? The guards grabbed her arms. Their grips were iron, unbreakable. She could feel the blood draining from her knuckles. Emily Carter, Marcus announced in a voice loud enough for everyone in the hall to hear. You are accused of theft. Specifically, the theft of royal jewelry from the Queen's chambers. Emily felt the blood drain from her face. She could barely breathe. I have stolen nothing. I do not even have access to the Queen's chambers. We shall see about that, Marcus said, his eyes narrowed like a predator sizing up its prey. Bring her things. A housekeeper hurried forward, carrying Emily's small bag, the only bag she owned, the bag that held everything she had brought from her old life, a life she was desperately trying to cling to. Marcus took the bag and upended it on the floor, a cruel, theatrical gesture. Emily's clothes tumbled out, lilies, drawings, colorful crayons scattered on the cold stone, a letter from her mother that she had kept for years, a fragile piece of home in this strange and hostile place. And then, glittering in the morning light, something that made Emily's heart stop. Cold, jewels, sparkling like captured stars, a necklace of rubies, a bracelet of sapphires, a ring with a diamond so large it caught every beam of light in the room, a blinding flash of accusation. Emily stared at them in horror. Those are not mine. I have never seen those before in my life. Strange, Marcus said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. How they ended up in your bag then, isn't it? Someone put them there. Someone is trying to frame me. And who would do such a thing? Marcus asked, a knowing smirk playing on his lips. Emily looked at Marcus. She looked at his cold eyes, his calculating smile, and the satisfied gleam in his expression. She knew. You, she said. The word barely a whisper. You did this. The room went silent, all eyes fixed on them. Marcus laughed, a cold, hollow sound that sent shivers down Emily's spine. Me? Why would I bother framing a simple housekeeper? You overestimate your importance, woman, and you insult my honor. He nodded to the guards, a silent command. Take her to the dungeon, he ordered. She will be tried for theft and treason. The penalty for stealing from the royal family is death. Emily screamed. She fought against the guards. She called out for someone, anyone, to help her, to see the truth. But no one moved. No one spoke. The members of the aristocracy watched with distant eyes. The servants looked away, as if they didn't want to be contaminated by her misfortune. She was nothing to them, just a housekeeper, just a nobody, just an inconvenience to be disposed of. As the guards dragged her toward the door, she heard a sound that shattered what remained of her heart, a sound that would haunt her forever. Mama! Lily came running into the hall, her small face streaked with tears. She had heard the commotion from the kitchen. She had come looking for her mother, her protector. Mama, what is happening? Where are they taking you? Lily's voice was a desperate plea. Emily stopped fighting, defeated. She looked at her daughter with eyes full of love and despair, a silent promise she couldn't keep. It is okay, baby, she said, her voice trembling. Everything is going to be okay. Stay with Margaret. She will take care of you. Lies. All lies. No! Lily screamed. No, Mama, do not leave me! She ran toward Emily, but one of the guards caught her, lifted her off the ground, held her as she kicked and screamed. A tiny, helpless bird caught in a cage. Mama! Mama! Emily felt something break inside her, something that had been holding her together all these years, something that now shattered into a million pieces, leaving her empty and broken. "I love you," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I love you so much. Be brave for me. Be brave." And then the guards pulled her from the hall, and Lily's cries followed her down the corridor, into the darkness, into the dungeon where she would await her execution, alone. The dungeon was cold, dark, damp. The air was thick with the stench of despair. Emily sat on the stone floor, her back against the wall, her eyes staring at nothing. She had stopped crying hours ago. There were no tears left, only emptiness, only the hollow ache of loss, a void where her heart used to be. She thought about Lily, about her daughter locked in that castle with no mother to protect her, about what would happen to her after Emily was executed. Would Margaret really take care of her? Would she end up on the streets? Would Ricardo somehow find her and take her away to an even worse fate? The thoughts were torture, worse than any physical pain, worse than anything Marcus could do to her. The mental anguish was unbearable. She had failed. She had come to this castle to give Lily a better life, and instead, she had destroyed everything. The sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor, a slow, deliberate tread. Emily looked up, hope flickering for a fleeting moment. A figure appeared at the bars of her cell, tall, dark, familiar. A silhouette against the faint light. Damien. The Dragon Lord stood before her, his grey eyes searching her face. He looked terrible, pale, weak. The shadows under his eyes had deepened. But he was there. He had come, defying all expectations. "Your Majesty," Emily whispered, her voice hoarse and barely audible. "What are you doing here?" "I heard what happened," Damien said. His voice was rough, strained, as if each word caused him pain. "I came as soon as I could. You should not be here. You are unwell. You should be resting. I should be dead. But here we are, aren't we?" He gripped the bars of her cell. His hands were shaking. The poison was already working its way through his system, though neither of them knew it yet. He was a dying man, defying death for her. "Tell me the truth," he said, his gaze intense and unwavering. "Did you steal those jewels?" "No." Emily met his eyes without flinching. Her voice was clear and strong despite her fear. "I have never stolen anything in my life. Someone planted them in my bag. Someone wants me gone." "Who?" Emily hesitated. She thought about the bottle she had found, the purple liquid that moved like a living thing, Marcus's cold eyes when he found her holding it, the threat in his gaze. "I do not know," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper, "but I have my suspicions." Damien was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached through the bars and touched her face. His fingers were cold, but gentle, so gentle. A spark of warmth in the icy darkness. "I believe you," he said, his voice filled with an emotion she couldn't quite decipher. Emily felt tears returning, hot and burning, streaming down her face. "Why? Because I have watched you for 3 months. Because I have seen how you treat the other housekeepers, how you care for your daughter, how you work twice as hard as anyone else, because you are grateful for the chance to be here." Damien paused, his voice softening. "A thief does not have eyes like yours. A thief does not love like you love." Emily could not speak. The words were stuck in her throat, overwhelmed by his unexpected kindness. "I am going to get you out of here," Damien said, his voice filled with determination. "I'm going to find out who did this and make them pay." I promise you that. But the aristocracy answers to me. I am still the king, at least for now. And I will not let an innocent woman die because of political games. He released the bars and stepped back. His legs were unsteady, his breath labored. Something was very wrong with him. Stay strong, he said. Nah, I will be back. I will fix this. And then he was gone, disappearing into the darkness, leaving Emily alone with a fragile thing called hope. She did not know that it was the last time she would see him standing. She did not know that in less than 24 hours, he would collapse. She did not know that the poison Marcus had been feeding him would finally reach its fatal concentration. All she knew was that, for the first time in her life, and someone had looked at her and seen the truth, someone had believed her, and that someone was the Dragon Lord. The hours passed slowly in the dungeon. Emily did not sleep. She could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lily's face, heard her daughter screaming for her, felt the weight of her failure crushing her chest. She thought about her life, about all the choices that had led her here, about John and the years of heartache, about the courage it had taken to finally leave, about the hope she had felt when she walked through the gates of Shadowbrook Keep. She thought about Damien, about his grey eyes and his quiet kindness, about the way he had given Lily that dragon scale, about the promise in his voice when he said he would fix this. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that justice existed, that truth mattered, that love could triumph over cruelty. But she had believed before. She had believed that John would change. She had believed that if she was good enough, patient enough, loving enough, things would get better. They never did. Why should this be any different? A commotion in the corridor interrupted her thoughts. Shouting, running feet, someone screaming for a healer. Emily pressed herself against the bars, trying to see what was happening. A guard ran past her cell. His face was white with terror. "The Lord has collapsed," he shouted. "Someone find a physician." Emily's heart stopped. "Damien!" She gripped the bars and shook them. "Let me out!" she screamed. "Let me out!" But no one heard her. No one came. The entire castle was in chaos, and she was trapped in a dungeon, helpless to do anything. She sank to the floor. The man she loved was dying, and there was nothing she could do. Or so she thought. Because fate, as it turns out, had one more twist in store, and that twist would change everything. If this story has touched you, if you feel Emily's pain and hope and fear, consider showing your support with super thanks. Every contribution keeps these stories alive. Every contribution says that love and sacrifice matter. Every contribution becomes part of something beautiful. Because stories like this do not tell themselves. They need people who care. People like you. And now, let us continue. Let us go back to the moment when everything changed. It was midnight. When Sarah came to Emily's cell, the old housekeeper looked like she had aged 10 years in a single day. Her face was drawn. Her eyes were red from crying. Her hands shook as she fumbled with the keys. Sarah. Emily pressed against the bars. What is happening? Is the Lord? He is dying, Sarah said. Her voice broke on the words. They say he has been poisoned, dragon venom. There is only one cure, and no one is willing to try it. What cure? A kiss from a human with pure blood. But the transfer is dangerous. The human might die. Emily felt something shift inside her, a decision being made, before her mind could catch up. Let me out, she said. Sarah looked at her. Are you insane? You are a prisoner. You are accused of theft. If you go up there now, they will execute you on the spot. Then I will die saving him, instead of dying in disgrace. Sarah was silent. Please, Emily whispered. I love him. I know it is impossible. I know it is forbidden. But I love him, and I cannot let him die, not when I have the power to save him. Sarah studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she unlocked the cell door. Go, she said. The guards are all distracted. Take the back stairs. I will take care of Lily until you return. She paused. If you return. Emily grabbed Sarah's hands and squeezed them. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. You might die up there. Then at least I will die, doing something that matters. Emily ran. She ran through the dark corridors, up the winding stairs, past the distracted guards. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs screamed for rest. She ran until she reached the Lord's chambers. The doors were open. Aristocracy and physicians crowded the room, all of them wearing expressions of hopelessness. Emily pushed through them, and there he was, Damien, lying on his bed, his skin grey, his breath shallow, his life slipping away with each passing second. She walked to his side. Someone grabbed her arm. The maid? What is she doing here? She is supposed to be in the dungeon. Let her go, a voice said. Everyone turned. Helena Blackwood, the Lord's mother, stood in the corner of the room. She was a severe woman, with silver hair and eyes that could cut through steel. She had never spoken to Emily, had never even acknowledged her existence. But now she was looking at Emily, with an expression that might have been hope. Let her try, Helena said. What do we have to lose? The hand released Emily's arm. She turned back to Damien. 3 seconds, she thought. I have 3 seconds to decide. But she had already decided. She had decided the moment Sarah told her about the cure. She had decided the moment she fell in love with a lonely lord who needed friends. She leaned down and she kissed him. The world exploded in golden light, and the story that started with 3 seconds became the story of a lifetime. Part 3. The Awakening. Emily opened her eyes. For a moment, she did not know where she was. The ceiling above her was unfamiliar, stone, ancient, painted with faded murals of dragons in flight. Light streamed through tall windows, golden and warm. She tried to move and gasped. Her entire body ached, not the sharp pain of injury, but something deeper, something that reached into her bones, her blood, her very soul. It felt like she had been torn apart and put back together, like she had died and been reborn. Mama! The voice cut through the fog in her mind, small, desperate, beloved. Emily turned her head. Lily was sitting beside the bed, her face tear-streaked, her small hands clutching that dragon scale so tightly. Her knuckles were white. The moment Emily's eyes met hers, Lily burst into fresh tears. "Mama, you woke up! You woke up!" She practically collapsed onto the bed, wrapping her little arms so tight around Emily's neck. Emily just held her daughter and felt her own tears starting to fall. "I thought you were gone," Lily sobbed. "You were sleeping for so long," they said. "They said you might never wake up." "How long?" Emily whispered. Her voice was hoarse, damaged. "How long was I sleeping?" 3 days. 3 days. Emily closed her eyes. 3 days of darkness. 3 days of nothingness. 3 days where her little girl had sat right beside her bed, waiting, hoping, praying. "I am so sorry," Emily said. "I am so sorry I scared you, sweetie." "It's okay, Mommy." Lily pulled back and looked at her with those big, beautiful, worried eyes. "You saved the Dragon Lord. Everyone says so. You're a hero." Emily didn't feel like a hero. She felt like a woman who had gambled with her life and somehow, against all the odds, won, barely. "The Dragon Lord," she said suddenly. He is alive." A new voice, deep, resonant, familiar. Emily looked toward the doorway. Damien stood there, watching her, with those grey eyes that had haunted her dreams for the last 3 months. But he looked different, stronger. The greyness had left his skin. The shadows had lifted from his eyes. He was alive, truly alive. And he was looking at her like she was the most precious thing in the entire world. "You saved my life," he said. His voice was rough, thick with emotion. "You almost died, saving my life." "I had to," Emily whispered. "No," he said softly, stepping closer. "You did not. You were a prisoner. You were accused of crimes you didn't commit. You had every reason to let me die, but instead..." He paused, swallowed. "Instead, you kissed me. You took my poison into yourself. You nearly died for a man you barely knew." Emily felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "I knew enough." Damien crossed the room in 3 long strides. He knelt beside her bed, his face level with hers, this close. She could see the faint silver scales along his jaw, the ancient power that lurked behind his eyes. "Why?" he asked. "Why did you do it?" Emily looked at him, at this man who had been kind to her daughter, who had believed her when no one else would, who had come to her dungeon cell, even when he was dying. "Because I love you," she said. The words hung in the air between them, simple, true, almost impossible. Damien closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. "I have loved you since the first moment I saw you," he said. "That day, in the corridor, when you were cleaning windows, you looked up at me with those golden eyes, and something inside me broke, something that had been frozen for decades." He reached out and gently touched her face. "I told you there was a spot on the window because I wanted an excuse to talk to you. There was no spot. There was never any spot." "I know," Emily whispered. "I checked." Damien laughed, a real laugh, warm and wonderful, and completely unexpected from the feared Dragon Lord. "Of course, you did." He leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers. His skin was warm now. The dragon fire had returned. "I love you," he said. "Emily Carter, I love you, with every piece of my broken, torn, scarred and lonely heart, and if you will let me, I will spend the rest of my life proving it. Emily could not speak. The tears were falling too fast. The joy was too big for words. So she answered him the only way she could. She kissed him. And this time, the kiss was not about poison, or curses, or saving lives. This time, the kiss was just about love, pure, simple, true. When they finally pulled apart, Lily was giggling. "Does this mean the Dragon Lord is going to be my new dad?" she asked. Damien looked at the little girl with her curly hair and her dragon scale birthmark and her complete lack of fear. "Only if you want me to be," he said. Lily considered this for a moment, then she nodded solemnly. "I think that would be acceptable." Damien laughed again, and Emily laughed, and for a moment, everything was perfect. But perfection never lasts, because Marcus Sterling was still out there, still plotting, still determined to destroy everything Emily had built, and his next move was already in motion. The news of Emily awakening spread through Shadowbrook Keep like wildfire. By nightfall, everyone knew the story. The housekeeper who had kissed the Dragon Lord, the human who had absorbed the dragon poison, the woman who had died and come back with strange golden marks on her skin. Emily discovered the marks. When Margaret helped her bathe that evening, they ran along her arms, her neck as her shoulders, thin lines of gold that pulsed faintly. In the darkness, they did not hurt, they didn't do anything, as far as she could tell, but they were undeniably there. "The curse," Margaret explained, "some of it stayed in you, changed you." "Changed me how? No one knows. You are the first human to ever survive a dragon curse transfer. The scholars are, beside themselves with curiosity." Emily looked at her reflection in the mirror, at the golden lines that traced patterns across her skin, at the faint glow in her honey-colored eyes that had not been there before. "Am I still human?" she asked. Margaret smiled gently. "You are still Emily. That is what matters." But not everyone saw it that way. The next morning, Emily was summoned to the Great Hall. She walked through the corridors with Lily at her side, and Damien walking behind them. The Dragon Lord had insisted on escorting her personally. He had not left her side since she woke up. The Great Hall was packed with aristocracy, guards, and servants. Everyone wanted to see the woman who had saved the Dragon Lord. Everyone wanted to judge for themselves whether she was a hero or a threat. Marcus Sterling stood at the front of the crowd. He looked the same as always, handsome, charming, his smile firmly in place. But Emily could see the cold fury behind his eyes. She had ruined his plans. She had saved the man he had tried to kill. And now, he was going to make her pay. "My lords and ladies," Marcus began, addressing the crowd, "we are here to discuss a matter of grave importance. 3 days ago, this woman," he gestured at Emily, "performed an act that saved our Dragon Lord's life. For that, she deserves our gratitude." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. The word "but" was coming. She could feel it. "But," Marcus continued, "we must also consider the circumstances. This woman was a prisoner. She was accused of theft. She escaped from the dungeon without permission, and now she carries dragon magic in her blood." He paused. For dramatic effect, "How do we know She did not orchestrate this entire situation. How do we know? She was not working with the assassin. Who poisoned the Dragon Lord? How do we know? She did not plan to absorb the poison, so she could use it against us. Later, the crowd murmured. Some looked skeptical, others looked worried. Emily felt her hands begin to shake. The fear was back, the same fear she had felt with Ricardo, the same helplessness. The certainty washed over her again that no matter what she said, no one would believe her. This is absurd. Damien's voice cut through the murmuring like a blade. He stepped forward, his steel-gray eyes flashing with barely contained rage. Emily Carter is innocent, he declared, his voice ringing with authority. She was framed for the theft. I have already ordered a full investigation. And as for the poison... He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room, a silent challenge in his eyes. She nearly died, saving my life. She bears the scars, marks on her body that will never fade. She suffered for 3 days in darkness, while her daughter cried at her bedside, and you dare to suggest she is a traitor. I merely raise questions that must be answered. Your Majesty, Marcus said smoothly, his voice like oiled silk. For the safety of the kingdom. Then let me answer them, Damien growled, stepping even closer. Emily is not a threat. She is a hero. She's under my personal protection, and anyone who suggests otherwise will answer to me. The room fell silent. A hush so profound, you could hear the blood rushing in your ears. Marcus's practiced smile did not waver, even slightly. Of course, Your Majesty, I meant no disrespect. I only wish to ensure the safety of the realm. The safety of the realm is not your concern. Marcus, Damien said, his voice as cold as a winter wind. Your concern is serving me, and I am beginning to wonder if you remember that. For the first time, something flickered in Marcus's eyes, a fleeting shadow, fear, anger. Emily couldn't tell, but it was there, undeniable. I have always served the Shadowbrook family, faithfully. Your Majesty, Marcus said, his voice strained. 20 years of loyal service. Then continue to serve faithfully, Damien replied, his voice like a whip, and leave Emily alone. He turned his back on Marcus, dismissing him with a gesture, and walked to Emily's side. He took her hand in his, a bold gesture, a calculated risk that made the entire room gasp in unison. This woman saved my life. Here he announced, his voice ringing with unwavering conviction. And I intend to honor that debt. From this day forward, Emily Carter is no longer a housekeeper. She is a guest of the royal family. She will have chambers in the East Wing. Her daughter, Lily, will receive the finest education, and anyone who disrespects her will face my wrath. He looked around the room, his gaze a challenge, daring anyone to object. No one did. Good, Damien said, his voice laced with satisfaction. This audience is over. He led Emily out of the great hall, Lily skipping along beside them, her eyes wide with wonder. The crowd parted before them, like waves before a ship. Emily did not look back. She refused to. But she knew, with a chilling certainty, that Marcus was watching, planning, waiting. The battle was far from over. That night, Emily found a letter slipped under her door, like a serpent. It was written on fine, cream-colored paper, the handwriting elegant and precise, like a calligrapher's. There was no signature, but she knew, instinctively, who it was from. You think you have won. The letter read, the words practically dripping with malice. You think the Dragon Lord's affection will protect you. But you are wrong. I have been playing this game for 20 years. I have outlasted queens and princes and threats far greater than you, and I will outlast you too. Enjoy your victory while it lasts. It will not be long. Emily read the letter 3 times, each time, the words sinking deeper into her soul. Then, without hesitation, she walked to the fireplace and burned it, watching the flames consume the threat, turning it to ash. She would not be afraid. She had faced worse than Marcus Sterling. She had faced Ricardo and his brutality. She had faced death itself, and she had survived. She would survive this too, but she knew deep down that she could not do it alone. She needed proof. She needed evidence. She needed to expose Marcus for what he really was before he destroyed her and everything she held dear. And she knew exactly where to start. The bottle, the purple bottle, with the liquid that moved like a living thing, a sinister dance within glass. The bottle that Marcus had taken from her in the council chamber. If she could find that bottle, if she could prove it was dragon venom, she could connect Marcus to the assassination attempt beyond any shadow of doubt. She just had to find where he had hidden it. Over the next few days, Emily began to watch Marcus like a hawk. She watched him at meals, noting who he spoke to and what he said, analyzing every nuance, every inflection. She watched him in the corridors, tracking his movements through Shadowbrook Keep, like a predator, stalking its prey. She watched him during council meetings, studying his expressions when Damien mentioned the investigation into the poisoning, searching for any sign of guilt or fear. And she noticed something interesting, a subtle anomaly in his routine. Every evening, just after sunset, Marcus would disappear for exactly 1 hour. He would leave through a side door near the kitchen and not return until the stars were out, glittering like diamond in the inky sky. Where did he go? What did he do? Emily intended to find out, no matter the risk or the cost. On the 4th night, she followed him, her resolve hardening with each passing hour. She waited until Lily was asleep, tucked safely into her bed, then slipped out of her chambers and made her way to the side door, her heart pounding, a frantic drum against her ribs. She moved quietly, a shadow among shadows, keeping to the darkened corners, using every skill she had learned during her years with Ricardo. How to be invisible, how to move without sound, how to survive. Marcus left the castle and walked toward the gardens, his figure silhouetted against the twilight. Emily followed at a safe distance, staying behind hedges and statues, never letting him out of her sight, her senses on high alert. He walked for several minutes, his pace steady and purposeful, until he reached a small building at the edge of the property. An old storage shed, barely used, almost forgotten. He looked around carefully, his eyes scanning the surroundings, then slipped inside. Emily waited, her breath held captive in her lungs. 10 minutes passed, 20, 30. Finally, the door opened and Marcus emerged, his face obscured by shadows. He was carrying something, a small chest, hidden under his coat. He walked back toward the castle, moving quickly now, his steps betraying his anxiety. Emily followed, her muscles coiled tight, ready to spring. But this time, she made a mistake, a fatal slip-up. She stepped on a dry branch, hidden beneath a layer of fallen leaves. The crack echoed through the night like a gunshot, shattering the silence. Marcus froze, his body going rigid. Then, slowly, agonizingly slowly, he turned around, his eyes narrowed and cold. "Who is there?" he demanded, his voice a low, menacing threat. Emily pressed herself against a tree, her breath caught in her throat, her heart pounding so loud she was sure he could hear it. "I know you are there," Marcus said, his voice laced with impatience. "Come out, now, and perhaps I will be merciful." Emily did not move. She held her ground, her will a shield against her fear. Marcus waited, his gaze unwavering. The silence stretched on, thick and heavy, like a shroud. Finally, he shook his head, and his lips curling into a sneer, and turned away. "Probably just an animal," he muttered, his voice dripping with contempt. "Getting paranoid in my old age." He continued toward the castle, his pace quickening. Emily exhaled, her body trembling with relief. That had been close, too close, but she had learned something valuable. Marcus had a secret hiding place, and in that hiding place was something he did not want anyone to find. Tomorrow night, she would go back. She would search the shed. She would find the evidence she needed, and then Marcus Sterling would finally face justice. But fate had other plans, because the next morning, Lily made a discovery that would change everything. It happened at breakfast, a seemingly ordinary morning about to be shattered. Emily was eating with Lily in their new chambers when her daughter suddenly gasped, "Mama, look." She was holding up the dragon scale, the scale that Damien had given her weeks ago as a gift. But something was different about it. It was glowing, not the faint, ethereal shimmer it usually had. This was a true glow, a powerful light, bright and pulsing and like a heartbeat of light. "What is happening?" Lily asked, her voice filled with wonders and a hint of fear. "I do not know," Emily admitted, her eyes wide with confusion. "Let me see." She took the scale from Lily and examined it, her fingers brushing against its surface. The moment her fingers touched it, she felt a jolt of something run through her. A surge of energy, recognition, connection, as if the scale was responding to the dragon marks on her skin. A silent dialogue, and then she saw it. An image, not in front of her, but in her mind, clear and sharp as a memory or a vision. Marcus, standing in a dark, cold room, holding a purple bottle in his trembling hands, pouring its contents into a wine glass, handing the glass to a servant and saying, "Make sure Lord Damien drinks this with his dinner tonight." The vision faded as quickly as it had come. Emily stood frozen, her mind racing. The scale had shown her something, a memory, a premonition. She didn't know, but she knew. What she had seen was real. Marcus had been poisoning Damien for months, and now she had proof. Not physical proof, but proof nonetheless. She had to tell Damien. She had to stop Marcus before he tried again. Emily grabbed Lily's hand and ran from the room. She found Damien in his study, reviewing documents with several advisors. When he saw her face, he immediately dismissed them. "What is wrong?" he asked. Emily told him everything. The bottle she had found, the threat Marcus had made, the shed at the edge of the property, and finally, the vision the dragon scale had shown her. Damien listened in silence. His face grew darker with each word. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "The scale showed you this?" "Yes." Emily held it out to him. "I don't understand how or why, but I saw it as clearly as I see you now." Damien took the scale from her. He examined it carefully, turning it over in his hands. "Dragon scales are more than decoration," he said slowly. "They carry memories, intentions. They respond to those who are connected to the dragon who shed them." He looked at Emily. "When you absorbed my curse, you became connected to me, to my magic, to my memories. So, the scale is showing me things you have seen, things I might have seen, things I sense but didn't consciously register." He paused. "I always felt something was wrong with Marcus, a darkness beneath the charm, but I could never prove it." "Now we can," Emily said. "The shed, whatever he's hiding there, is the proof we need." Damien nodded. His grey eyes were hard as steel. "Then we search the shed," he said. "Tonight." Emily felt a surge of hope. This was it. This was how they would end Marcus's schemes. This was how they would finally be safe. But she didn't know that Marcus was already 2 steps ahead. She didn't know that he had been watching her, that he knew she had followed him, that he had already moved the evidence to a new location. She didn't know that tonight, instead of finding proof, they would walk into a trap, and the trap was about to spring. Part 4. The Reckoning that night. Emily and Damien walked to the shed together. The moon was full, casting silver light across the gardens. The air was cold, sharp. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath. "Are you sure about this?" Damien asked. His hand was warm around hers, solid, protective. "I am sure," Emily said. "We need to end this tonight." They reached the shed. Damien pushed open the door. Inside, it was dark. Oh, empty. Just old tools and forgotten supplies, covered in dust and cobwebs. "There is nothing here," Damien said, looking around. Emily felt her heart sink. He must have moved it. He must have known I was following him. A sound behind them made them both spin around. Marcus stood in the doorway, flanked by 4 guards. His smile was triumphant, cold, the smile of a man who had already won. "Looking for something, Your Majesty?" he asked. "Marcus," Damien growled. "What is the meaning of this?" "The meaning?" Marcus stepped into the shed. The guards followed, blocking the only exit. "The meaning is that I have been planning this for 20 years, and I will not let a common housekeeper ruin everything." He snapped his fingers. The guards drew their swords. Emily felt terror grip her chest. This was it. This was how it ended. Not with justice, but with murder in a forgotten shed. But Damien did not look afraid. He looked angry. "You think 4 guards can stop me?" he asked. His voice was low. dangerous. There was fire behind his eyes, literal fire. The silver scales on his neck were beginning to glow. "I think 4 guards armed with Dragonbane can slow you down long enough," Marcus replied. His smile never wavered. "You see, I learned from my mistake. Dragon venom works slowly. Dragonbane works instantly. One cut, and you will be too weak to transform, too weak to fight, too weak to do anything, but die." He pulled a blade from his coat. The metal was black, ancient, carved with runes that pulsed with dark light. "This belonged to the dragon hunters of old," Marcus said, "the ones who drove your kind to extinction. It has been waiting for this moment, for centuries." He pointed the blade at Emily. "But first," he said, "I think I will kill the woman you love, just so you can watch." "No!" The word exploded from Damien with a force that shook the walls. And with it came something else. Fire. Not the controlled flames of a man who could become a dragon. This was raw, primal, unstoppable. It burst from his body in a wave of golden light, throwing the guards backward, slamming them against the walls, burning the weapons from their hands. Marcus raised the Dragonbane blade, but he was too slow. Damien was already moving, already transforming. His body stretched and expanded. His skin became scales. His eyes became molten gold. His fingers became claws. In seconds, the Dragon Lord was no longer a man. He was a dragon, a massive silver beast that filled the shed and burst through its walls, wings that blocked out the moon, a roar that shook the very foundations of Shadowbrook Keep. Marcus stumbled backward, his face finally showing fear. "You cannot do this," he screamed. "I am your counselor. I have served this family for 20 years. The dragon lowered its head until it was level with Marcus. Its eyes, still grey as storm clouds, bore into the man who had tried to kill him. "You poisoned me," the dragon said. Its voice was Damien's voice, but deeper, more ancient, resonating with power. "You framed the woman I love. You tried to destroy everything I care about." "I did it for the kingdom," Marcus pleaded. "You were weak, distracted. The realm needed strong leadership." "The realm needed truth," the dragon replied. "The realm needed justice. And now, the realm will have it." It reached down and closed one massive claw around Marcus, lifted him off the ground, held him there, squirming and screaming, as guards and aristocracy came running from the keep to see what was happening. "Look at him," the dragon commanded. Its voice echoed across the grounds. "Look at the man who poisoned your lord. Look at the traitor who would have destroyed this kingdom from within." The crowd stared in horror, in shock, in dawning understanding. And then a small voice rang out. "I saw him!" Everyone turned. Lily stood at the front of the crowd, clutching her dragon scale. Margaret was behind her, trying to pull her back, but Lily would not move. "I saw him hide something," Lily said. Her voice was clear and strong, braver than any child should have to be. "In the garden, behind the statue of Queen Anne. I saw him bury a box." The Dragon Lord looked at the little girl who had called him friend, the little girl who had asked him if he was sad, the little girl who had shown him what love looked like. "Show me," the Dragon Lord said. Lily nodded. She walked through the crowd and past the stunned aristocracy and the terrified guards until she reached the statue of the old queen at the center of the garden. Queen Anne, She pointed at the ground. "Here," she said. The Dragon Lord set Marcus down, but kept one claw pinning him to the ground. With the other, it dug into the earth. Seconds later, it unearthed a small chest, the same chest Emily had seen Marcus carrying. Inside were documents, letters, ledgers, and a small, purple bottle, the evidence of 20 years of treachery. There were letters to foreign enemies, offering to sell kingdom secrets. There were ledgers showing money stolen from the treasury. There were documents proving that Marcus had orchestrated the deaths of 2 previous advisors who had suspected him. And there was the dragon venom, enough to kill a dozen kings. The crowd erupted in outrage. "Traitor!" someone shouted. "Hang him! Burn him!" Marcus struggled against the dragon claw. His charm was gone. His composure was shattered. He was nothing but a desperate man, facing the consequences of his choices. "Please," he begged, "please, I can explain. I can make this right." The Dragon Lord looked at him with eyes that held no mercy. "You cannot make this right," it said. "You can only face justice." It turned to the crowd, to the aristocracy, and guards, and servants who had gathered. "Marcus Sterling is guilty of treason," the Dragon Lord announced. "He poisoned me. He framed an innocent woman. He stole from the kingdom and plotted with its enemies. The punishment for treason is death." The crowd roared its approval, but the Dragon Lord raised a claw for silence. "However," it continued, "I am not a tyrant. I am a king, and a king does not execute men without trial. Marcus Sterling will be imprisoned. He will face the council. He will have the chance to defend himself. Though I doubt even his silver tongue can talk his way out of this." It released Marcus. Guards rushed forward to drag him away. He went screaming, cursing, promising revenge. But his threats were empty now. His power was gone. The Dragon Lord watched him go. Then, slowly, it began to shrink. The scales receded. The wings folded away. The ancient power returned to its human vessel. Damien stood in the moonlight, breathing heavily. The transformation had cost him, but he was alive. And Marcus was finished. Emily ran to him. She threw her arms around him and held on tight. She was crying, laughing, trembling with relief. "It is over," she whispered. "It is finally over." Damien held her back. His arms were strong, safe, home. "Yes," he said, "it is over." And then he kissed her. In front of the entire kingdom, in front of aristocracy and guards and servants, in front of Lily, who cheered and clapped, in front of Margaret, who smiled through her tears, in front of Helena, his mother, who watched with an expression that might have been approval. The Dragon Lord kissed the housekeeper who had saved his life, and no one said a word. Because some things were more powerful than tradition. Some things were more important than status. Some things, like love, could change the world. The trial was held 1 week later. Marcus stood before the council, his hands bound, his face pale. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The letters, the ledgers, the poison. The testimony of servants who had seen things they were too afraid to report before. He was found guilty on all counts. The sentence was exile, permanent banishment from all 5 kingdoms. He would be stripped of his titles, his wealth, his name. He would wander the world alone, forever marked as a traitor. Some said it was too merciful. Some said he deserved death. But Damien had made his decision, and the kingdom accepted it. On the day Marcus was escorted from Shadowbrook Keep, Emily watched from the window of her new chambers. She watched the man who had tried to destroy her walk away in chains. She watched him disappear into the distance, growing smaller and smaller until he was nothing but a speck on the horizon. And then he was gone. She felt no satisfaction, no joy, only relief. It was over. Finally, truly over. "Mama?" Lily appeared at her side, her curly hair bouncing, her dragon scale glinting in the sunlight. "Yes, baby?" "Are we safe now?" Emily looked at her daughter, and at the beautiful and brave little girl who had helped expose a traitor, who had show